Stand up for yourself, and I'll back you up. 'Cause problems don't solve themselves. I'll tell you what, instead of would or could, I think you should draw a line in the sand and stand your ground. It's for your own good.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Voice of Families and Addiction. My name is Roy Poyan, your host. My co-host today is Rex the Renaissance Man.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm starting to have some fun here. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that or not, but I hope the audience is also. These are thought-provoking questions, and that's exactly where we would like you to be. We're going to be using the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And what that's going to allow you to do is follow along with our discussions together in what we've read and what we're thinking about in each of these pages. So let's get started. We're looking at page 205, and it's starting out with this new portion of what was before considered to be a dependence position. Let me just take a minute and kind of massage that. When we looked at the first 3 habits of highly effective people, they were all dependent on us, what we did. Nobody else was involved with it. So being proactive was the first. And beginning with the end in mind was the second. And the third was putting first things first, prioritizing urgency over the need for getting it done like right now to its value, its importance. So urgency versus importance in a matrix kind of like box of 4. And those chapters each identify those habits. And we're assuming that you've read through those too, which brings us now to a portion called independence. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like we're transitioning our thought of habits. We're saying, up to now, everything has been dependent on us. But we truly know that in order to be effectively independent, which is a very good place to be, we're going to need the help or participation of people other than ourselves, because let's face it, it's life.
Right.
So, Rex, when you start to look at independence as opposed to dependence, and then what we're moving towards is interdependence, meaning
Right.
including other people, what exactly would you like kind of help the audience discuss this topic amongst themselves?
Well, when it comes to independence, you have to know what your strengths are. You have to know, are you an asset or a liability? And once you stop becoming dependent, which is a liability, and know what you bring to the table to be independent, then you're able to grow into the next phase, which is being interdependent.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you for that.
For sure.
I would agree. I think that an example, we think of independence. Well, Roy, that's the Constitution, and our whole country went through that. Well, that's correct. And if you were to look at it, we were dependent upon ourselves as colonies, but we realized that we had to become independent, and then we realized that required commerce between all these colonies, and there was this interdependence. So is it fair to say that for Roy, having a relationship as we do here in our host and co-host relationship, I am really independent because I'm dependent upon you participating in this, but I still have independence.
Yeah. I mean, either way, we are still dependent on another source to complete us in some way.
Right.
So even though you can do this by yourself, it'll work better if you have somebody that has of equal value or more value to serve that purpose. So, yes.
I'm a man. I don't need anybody else. I can chop wood, hunt, and fish, and bring in everything. But then again, I realized very quickly.
All right. You'll spread yourself thin.
Well, how much of my ego am I going to have to take up?
A lot. A lot. Yeah.
Fair enough. So when we're starting to look at the next habit, we're looking at think win-win.
Yes.
And we've often heard that in sports analogies and in other kind of like debates and other type of planning. Let's take a closer look, because it's not always win-win. What are some of the other characteristics that we see on page 207
So
that Covey looks at?
So you have of course, win-win. You have win-lose, lose-win, and then you have lose-lose.
Huh. Could all of those play out at the kind of like the same sequence? I mean, could it start out as a understanding or a relationship where, it starts out lose-lose, and then somehow we talk it through and we find a
Right.
win-lose. You're
Yeah.
winning, I'm losing.
Whoever has the offer,
Okay.
that's where
the
it
golden
usually
rule.
starts. Right. Yeah.
He with the goals sets the rules.
Pretty much.
Excuse me. Okay, so let's, if you think it's a value, let's go through each one. The win-win is kind of a frame of mind. It's a heart. It's constantly seeking the benefits to what is like basic human interactions. So win-win means in an agreement and solutions that you're going to get something of equal value of what I'm getting of equal value. They may be two diametrically opposed, or they may be two of the exact same thing, and there's enough for both of us to participate in it.
Right.
Okay, let's say I'm a man and I've just been, released from a treatment center.
Okay.
And should I be looking for a win-win, or should I always be looking for the I win, you lose?
When you are dependent on a source to uplift you, of course you want to win, but you have to prove yourself to somebody that is already winning. And even if you have to take the loss just in the beginning, it may be a lose-win in the beginning.
Very well put.
Yeah.
And in a relationship where you've, through maybe no fault of your own, but through your own fault, have created strife in the family, and you're coming back and saying, I'm better now, and I'd like for you to see this, and see me in a different way.
Right.
That's hard for them to do. You may have to assume a lose, you lose, they win in the beginning in order to kind of like allow them to see how participating with me, you will get the win-win.
Right.
And I'm willing to show how I'm willing to give up a little and not get as much of this as time evolves.
Exactly. So, we all have went through all four of these phases at some point in time.
Yeah.
But, based off of what we're talking about right now, yes, you have to prove yourself in some situations where you're going to get the shorter end of the stick.
Right.
Yeah, but eventually it's going to come to a win-win when you become independent enough to say, hey, my offer is just as equal as yours. Now, can we negotiate?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Is a lose-lose ever a winning situation where both lose?
If you ask me that question, in some situations, yes. Because
Then why do it?
first off,
Sorry to do this to you.
No, it's okay because I've been put into a situation where, okay, I was already losing.
Right.
And the thing was, I said, you know what? Do you think that I'm going to exhaust myself to give you the energy that I don't have so then you can win? No,
Yeah.
No.
My cup's already empty.
Exactly.
What am I going to draw from?
So, no, you're going to lose too.
So it's kind of like watch out what hole you get yourself into
Definitely.
to help somebody out of a hole.
Right.
You both may end up losing.
Right. See, I'm a good man, not a nice guy.
Yeah. Okay. Describe for me that.
A good man, I will always, do what's right.
Yeah.
But will I do something to appease you just to, make you like me? No.
A lot of people get into trouble doing that,
Yeah. And
especially when they're weak.
Yeah, I'm not going for it. So I feel like a lot of people should have that mentality, be a good woman, not a nice girl, or be a good man, not a nice guy. Mm-hmm. That way you set a boundary not only for, the other person, but also for yourself, because when you are a nice guy, you overstep your own boundaries and you disrespect yourself.
So what do you think gets you out of a lose if the lose set of cards are in your hand?
If the losing set of cards in my hand, in order for me to get out of a losing situation, that's a very good question.
I think Covey gives it to us in the next habit, which is first understand the situation.
Yes.
What I've done is with solutions development is I've kind of written out what exactly is going on, and then who is involved in what's going on, kind of like what's their role playing out in this thing that's going on. Go ahead.
I say the best way to get out of that situation And the best option is a no deal.
No deal, walk away.
Yeah, just walk away.
How do you know the right time to walk away? I feel like we're in the art of the deal here.
Yeah,
That's okay.
when it doesn't cater to each party equally. When we both know, look, we're not gaining anything out of this. Look, let's just walk away. And
Okay.
then maybe later on, in the future, another opportunity will present itself.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So in seeking to understand, which is the next habit,
Yes.
you may come to that conclusion. And so wouldn't you really need to know, would it take character on your part? And isn't character a part of win-win?
Yes.
So we know when we're winning, and we have the character to say, I am truly gaining from this.
Right. Right.
The question then is, am I gaining more than you? In which case, it's a win, Roy, lose, Rex.
Right. Right.
So, but I need to know the value of what you've lost if I'm going to ever help us to find a win-win.
Right. See, before we got into this part, there was a piece in here, and he was talking about the emotional bank account.
Well, let's spend a little time on the emotional bank account.
So with the emotional bank account, like this was like, I love this part of the book. I read it maybe 3 times.
Okay.
And the reason why it meant so much to me is because oftentimes we say things to people, like the littlest thing that we could say could take out so much from that other person. So for instance, if I say one wrong word to you and it moves you, in
Right.
a negative way,
Yeah.
I'm taking a bigger withdrawal than I am making a deposit.
And I'm sitting here winding on this word that you use, thinking he's hurt my feelings, he doesn't respect me.
Exactly.
And then I'm folding another onion peel back. And
That part. So I felt like that was something that we definitely needed to cover in order for them to understand when it comes to win-win.
okay.
The
The emotional bank account.
Yes, the emotion. What are you putting in? You don't have to make a crazy deposit in order to get basically what you'll call ROI, return on your investment. No, the little things matter, and it'll heal a situation before it gets out of hand.
Right.
Yeah, just mutual respect.
Does trauma interfere with that?
Definitely, yes.
A lot of us have trauma.
See, having trauma is not your fault, but how you deal with it is your responsibility.
Right. And your response ability.
Yes.
Your ability to create your response.
Right.
Right. Well, then we start to get into of the habits, 7 of them in this book.
Yes.
And we're on the 4th habit. That means that all of these are interdependent upon, your emotional bank account
Right.
and your character.
Yes.
Can we spend a minute talking about character?
Yes. We definitely can.
What are your thoughts regarding character?
When it comes to character, it's just being conscious of how you project your thoughts onto someone else or the world around you.
Okay.
When you are, like you said, when you are going through trauma, that's a feeling within from an experience from the past.
Right.
And like I said, it's your responsibility to manage that. So when it comes to, your character, you're like, okay, you know what, let me put my pride aside, let me put my feelings aside and focus on the principle. It's not about my personality, it's about my character as a person. How am I treating this person?
How does fear interplay with character?
We all can say that, we may fear something, or some people will say they don't fear anything, but fear, it affects our character, in ways where it's like, okay, when it comes to a win-win situation,
Right.
or a win-lose situation, we fear of losing more than what we can gain. And when it comes to character, I feel like if we just focus on, look, do the right thing, even if, we don't get as much as we want out of it, our character will still be solid. It'll still be golden. It's not, it's not always, like I said, don't be a nice guy. Be a good person. Be a good man.
Right.
Yes.
More plays into that.
Yes.
Much more plays into that.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other one, you're just like letting go.
Exactly.
In order to be a nice guy, I'm going to let go
Right.
all my values, my beliefs, and
Exactly.
yeah,
You have to
because it's you that I'm trying to
Right.
appease in being nice,
you have to smother out your emotions
right?
just to do what's right.
And that's not sustainable, is it? You can't do that over a long period of time.
It's tough,
Yeah.
but I've been able to do it before. Plenty of times.
Okay. Okay. Well, when you're in a situation that you're not controlling, your environment in incarceration or even in a rehab center
Right.
or mental institution, you're kind of like people are always telling you how to do what you're doing. And then you get into a situation where those people just went away. How do you regroup and find yourself so that you can start to, once again, what types of outward relationships are healthy for you? Or is it more important not to do that and first take kind of a reconciliation of who am I, how well have I treated myself, and
It's
then a
tough there.
recompense of, do I need to give penance to anything that was wrong that I did to myself? There's nobody else involved, and in order that I can trust myself to make good decisions. Because I think, go ahead.
And that's the part right there, is trusting yourself.
How do you do that?
Trusting yourself is, first off, you have to be accountable.
Okay.
Once you're accountable, then that basically just lets you and the other person know, hey, I'm aware of who I am and I know what I'm doing wrong and what I could be doing right.
Does journaling help in that?
I can say yes, journaling does help, but I feel like just writing it down in a book and closing it is not enough.
Right.
You have to express it. As we're talking,
Yeah.
the thing is, if I was to repent openly about a flaw or a mistake that I made to you, I'm pretty much, letting you know how aware I am of what I did that was wrong versus me just putting in a book. You don't know anything about it. And that was just all off of experience. I realized that. I said, yeah, I can journal. But if I talk about it with somebody, maybe I might be healing that person
True.
in the same sense of me
That's
healing
often the
myself.
case.
Exactly.
But you're also holding yourself accountable. Would it
Definitely.
make sense if you had a trusted partner to say, yeah, I'm reading this book, 7 Habits, why don't you read it with me? I kind of would benefit by having somebody that held me accountable for some of the habits that
Definitely.
I'm trying to create here to be a better me.
Definitely. Because this book right here will, you'll cover so many topics that it's hard for you to not bring up any flaws.
Well, yeah, of which we all
Right.
have many.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I know even outside of this, we're going to talk to each other about things that our guests won't hear.
Right. Well, I don't want them to hear.
Yeah, for sure. But I've always found power within being naked, of just being open and honest.
Well, that's really vulnerable.
yeah.
How much does vulnerability play in stability? We're really getting carried away here, but like I said, we're having fun.
Yes, definitely. So
You're
You say,
vulnerable,
yeah.
but it's actually making you more stable. And you would think, no, Roy, if I'm vulnerable,
Right.
they're going to attack me in all my weaknesses and take advantage of me.
so
That's being vulnerable.
there's this thing about vulnerability. Like, a person can't tell me about me better than I can tell them about me.
Sure.
And when I tell them the darkest parts of me, they're like, dang, I can't use anything against them. You can't weaponize something
right.
that I use
You're
to
right.
empower me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if I didn't open up and say anything about it and you found out about it, you would use it to try to kill me.
Is vulnerability a little bit closer friend to what is the word truth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, finding truth in yourself. Let's save that for another chapter.
Yeah, for
We'll have to get a priest and a pastor together, a rabbi, and sit them all in a room. So with that in mind, then, we're going back to the book on win-win, lose-win, lose-lose.
Yes.
And then on page 211, Stephen Covey asks us, so, by the way, which option is the best? And of these philosophies discussed so far, win-win and win-lose, lose-win, lose-win, lose-lose, and win, which is most effective? And the answer is,
It depends. It depends.
what a wise guy he is, huh? It depends.
Right.
Yeah. So that means we're going to have to use judgment.
Right.
We're going to have kind of an understanding of where are we in our life? I mean, what is of real importance to us?
Yes.
We would definitely apply the begin with the end in mind habit. We would apply the seeking first things first, and being proactive. You know,
Yes.
I mean, we can't just sit back and think that win-win is going to happen without any effort.
Right.
So I'm a single mom. I'm getting off a bus stop, and it's cold out. It's 5:30. My mother has my child at home, and I've got to pick them up, and then I got to get home and make dinner, and I'm not seeing the win-win here in life. Where are these habits going to get me so far now that I'm in what Stephen Covey is calling intradependence? I'm not seeing the interdependence yet, but now for the first habit in the interdependence segment, because we moved out of private victory, now we're in public victory, according to the book. What should I be thinking?
So you said you are a single mother.
With a child, it's dark, it's cold, I'm tired, I gotta go. Pick the child up, I gotta take him back home, we're gonna cook dinner, you know, any kind of homework or school thing, you know, love them, and get them to bed.
So
Where's the win-win in this?
Okay. I'm gonna give you
Please do.
a real answer.
Okay, God bless you.
So if I am a single mother going through that, where do I win in the situation? I don't think about the loss too much.
Okay.
First off, I'll be patient. Second is eventually I'm going to attract somebody that needs something of me.
Because it's an interdependent habit.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Because you got to think about it. Everybody doesn't have it all together
No.
in some way,
none
form, or
of us do,
fashion.
to be honest with
Exactly. That woman could have a home. That man could not have a home, but he has a job, a hustle,
Right,
and he could provide for that home.
right.
See, the woman, you know, a house is just a house until that, you know, person or that family makes it a home.
Right.
And that's probably what that man needed.
Yes, right.
But she also needed some type of support. He has a truck or a car to help her get to and from. Now they are interdependent because
Yes.
before she met him, she was already doing it some way, somehow.
True.
But now it's a
tough.
lot easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier now that the right person came into her life.
Okay. I'm beginning to see how a habit, when given thought, because she's on the bus and she's stepping out into this, probably going to step out into slush
Yes.
and get her feet wet.
Eeh.
Yeah, I mean, we've lived these experiences.
Right.
I've lived these experiences. So with that in mind, now all of a sudden, she has, is it possibly because she's considering the 7 habits before she stands up to get off the bus and she's thinking, I'm not smart ass, you know, Stephen Covey.
Right.
I'm not seeing the win-win. And then she thinks about, well, what you had just said, doesn't that provide hope?
Yes, she has to get her mind out of the out of being a loser because she's not losing.
Yeah, right.
If she can focus her, you know, her perspective on, you know, greater things, like if she manifests greatness or positive,
What do
know,
you mean by manifest?
to
But act
manifest.
like I don't know.
Okay, so to manifest, manifesting is you're preparing yourself for the blessing to come.
Fair enough.
You're literally delusional, but you believe that it's going to happen as long as you keep a positive mindset.
Are these habits manifestations then?
Definitely, once you embed them into yourself and you start to move and act accordingly based on what Stephen R. Covey put in here, yes, you will attract that.
Wow.
Yes. Otherwise, if that didn't work, then we would have never met each other.
I don't know how we met each other, to be honest with you. It was divine.
It's because I had already been living, majority of these,
Yes, I do.
before I met you, but I attracted the person who connected you and
Yeah, yeah, to create that
I.
win-win.
Exactly.
So Stephen Boozy introducing the two of us created the win-win.
Definitely.
And I was looking for a person who could cohabitate on these topics
Yes.
in order to express it in a way that I can't,
Yes.
just not through my own fault, although I've got many, I never would have been able to, because
Right.
just this is who I am, and I can't change that.
See, you don't have to search for the right person or the right team. You just have to be that person in order to attract that person.
Whoa, wait a second. I have to be these things before I'm actually those things?
Truth be told, yes. See, people are so entitled.
Yeah,
when it,
just give it to me. I shouldn't have to work for it.
they're like, oh, I deserve this
Yeah.
high level man or woman. I
Yes,
deserve this
yeah.
high level associate.
Yeah.
The entire time they have a poor personality, poor character.
Right.
And you think that the Most High is going to present you to somebody that you can't even respect or
Okay.
appreciate?
Okay.
No, you have to work on yourself, because whatever level you're on, that's what you're going to attract.
Real quick, we only have about 5 more minutes left of the episode. Bridges to Poverty is a program, and they speak about how poverty has a culture that almost entraps you into staying in poverty.
Yeah.
Would these habits benefit, and could they, whoever that is, could they absorb that in a way that it would help them to break out of the poverty cycle?
Definitely. I'm an example.
Okay, well, you know, and I've been broke too. I mean, we come from different strengths.
Yeah.
You know, from our backgrounds. I respect that, but tell me, if you would, why that's the case. Do you feel, on a short statement?
I believe that it'll work. People just have to put in that effort. They have to want it for themselves. Have to stop being entitled to, feeling like, oh, somebody else owes me. No, you owe it to yourself. So, just as much as you want to go and purchase the next flyest thing, next car, clothes, house, you can chase something that you need versus the things that you want.
Are there differences between needs and wants?
Very much so.
How do we know if we're doing one over the other?
Because getting the things that you want is not going to provide what you need.
Well, you do provide good answers. You're a wise man.
But when you have the things that you need, when you have assets, that's going to take care of your responsibilities, but you'll still have something left over to take care of your wants.
Very good. Very good. Well, I hope that today's discussion was of value for us.
Yes.
It's another one of the habits that I think are going to bring enormous value to our lives. I want to thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again for another episode of The Voice of Families and Addiction.
Stand up for yourself, and I'll back you up. 'Cause problems don't solve themselves. I'll tell you what, instead of would or could, I think you should. Draw a line in the sand and stand your ground. It's for your own good.